Hello, and welcome everyone to another episode of Riz Talks. I'm your host, Riz, and I'm glad to have you here as we explore who we are, where we headed, and what it truly means to be humans. Our motto is to think again about views in the light of facts, statistics, and true history. For example, the biggest event of the last century was the Second World War. And guess who defeated the Germans and had suffered the most casualties? Who captured Berlin? Have a look, Google it. See if you've been given the same story or are you a little surprised. Do not take for granted what has been narrated. There are more sides to every story. Today's topic is Think Again, our motto. So, the mind is everything. What you think, you become, is what Buddha said. Because thoughts are the basis of our values, our beliefs, our decision making. Based on our understanding and rationalization, it is how we lead our lives every day. Everything we do, build, create, must be imagined first. We must think first. If it is not impulsive, then we've thought about it and then acted. We're exploring the most powerful thing we humans possess, not our ability to make fire, wheels, computers, skyscrapers, space shuttles, or complex smartphone emojis. No. Today we're talking about the thing that precedes all of these, our ability to think, to imagine, to envision, and then, crucially, to create. There's a profound idea echoed across philosophy, architecture, and even self help books that everything is created twice. The first creation is in our minds, and then it happens in physical form. A skyscraper exists first as a blueprint in an architect's mind, then as steel and glass. A symphony exists first as a whisper in a composer's imagination, and then as a wave of sound that can make an audience weep. A revolution exists first as a whispered conversation in a crowded cafe, then as a movement that reshapes nations. The problem is, most of us walk around with blueprints we didn't even draw ourselves. These are the blueprints we inherit, and we believe them without questioning. Let's begin with the story. In the 14th century, construction began on the Duomo, the massive cathedral in Florence, Italy. There is another one in Milan, though. They had a grand vision, a dome so large and so magnificent that it would be the envy of Christendom. There was just one problem: they didn't know how to build it. The technology didn't exist at the time to construct a dome of that size without it collapsing under its own weight. For decades, the cathedral sat unfinished, a magnificent hole in the skyline. It was a monument to ambition without execution. Then came Filippo Brunelleschi, a goldsmith with an obsession for geometry. He didn't just work harder, he thought again. He studied the Pantheon in Rome. He invented new hoisting machines. He devised a herringbone brick pattern that distributed weight in ways never attempted before. He didn't just build a dome, he reimagined what was possible. Now, let's bring this down to you and me. How many of our thoughts are inherited? For example, I'm not a math person, or I'm too old to start something new. People like me don't do things like that. These aren't facts, they're limitations we've accepted. As the writer and civil rights activist James Baldwin said, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. So let's get into some facts and figures, because here at Riz Talks, that's what we like to do. We like to ground our musics in some things a little bit more solid than just philosophical vibes. Psychologists have studied what they call cognitive flexibility, the ability to shift your thinking in response to changing demands or new information. And the research is stunning. A study published in Frontiers in Psychology found that individuals with higher cognitive flexibility report significantly higher levels of psychological resilience and well being. In plain English, people who can think again bounce back from life's punches faster. A landmark study by Adam Grant, the organizational psychologist who wrote the book Think Again, examined how top performing entrepreneurs and leaders distinguish themselves. He found that they don't have more confidence in their initial ideas. On the contrary, they have more humility about what they don't know. They create their first blueprint and then they have the courage to crumple it up and start over again and again, accepting their initial thinking was wrong. In a study of how people respond to being wrong, researchers found something delightfully absurd. When presented with evidence that contradicted their deeply held beliefs, participants' brains showed activity patterns similar to what you'd see in someone being physically threatened. So the next time you're in a heated argument about whether pineapple belongs on a pizza, remember, to some people, you're not just challenging a culinary preference, you're activating their fight or flight response. That's not an opinion, that's neuroscience. I quote Marcus Aurelius. He said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." Let me share an anecdote. It's a classic from the world of philosophy and psychology, often called the story of the lost hiker. A man is hiking in the mountains, the sun is setting, the temperature is dropping, and he realizes he's lost. He pulls out his map. He studies it carefully, identifies landmarks, traces his path, and confidently sets off in a direction he's certain will lead him to his destination or safety. An hour passes, 2 hours. He's now shivering, tired, getting closer to nightfall, and he's no closer to shelter. Finally, he stumbles upon a park ranger. So he asks the ranger, "I've been following this map for hours. I'm certain I'm on the right trail, but I'm still lost." The ranger looks at the map, then at the man, then back at the map and says, "Sir, this isn't a map of these mountains." The hiker had been marching with perfect confidence in the wrong direction. His blueprint was beautifully detailed, internally consistent, and completely useless for the terrain he was actually in. We walk around with maps, political maps, ideological maps, personal maps, drawn by our parents, our culture, our environment, our favorite influencers, by media. When reality doesn't match the map, we don't question the map. We double down, we walk faster, we get more lost. To think again is to be brave enough to hold your map up against the actual territory and say, "This might be wrong. I might need a new one." I know it's terrifying. It requires admitting that you've been walking in the wrong direction, but it's the only way to ever truly get home. And a lot of changes in the world have happened when people thought again, collectively or individually, and change happened. Here's the beautiful secret, excuse me. The people who are most willing to think again aren't the weak ones, they're the strongest. They're the scientists who celebrate when their hypothesis is disproven because it means they've learned something. They're the leaders who change their minds publicly and gain more respect for their intellectual honesty. They're the relentless who look at an unfinished cathedral and don't see failure. They see an invitation to imagine something new. So, we've seen that everything is created twice, first in the mind and then in reality. We've learned that cognitive flexibility isn't just a nice to have, it's linked to resilience, success, and even survival. And we've discovered that the biggest barrier to thinking again is often our own brain, which mistakes the threat of an idea for a threat to the self. The greatest prison we can inhabit is not made of bars. It's made of old beliefs and ideas. It's the things we never questioned, the identity we never re examined, the belief we inherited and never tested. Could be religion, could be culture, could be anything. Let us stop and ask, who are we really? Are we the people who cling to our first drafts, or are we the people who have the courage to revise? Thank you again for joining me this episode of Riz Talks. Are we living in a way that will leave this world better than we found it? It's now time to think again and then act. So please share the message with others, challenge ideas, join the conversation, and subscribe. Finally, Gautam Buddha also said, hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. This is the eternal rule. This is Riz Talks. Be curious, be kind, and come back for more.